The Tales series. Such wonderful games, giving us several interesting worlds, fun characters, and hours upon hours of action RPG gameplay to sink into completely. I've grown up with the series since I was a wee 12-year-old, and ever since then, this has pretty much become my go-to JRPG series. When other people were playing their Final Fantasies and Dragon Quests, I was playing Tales. Mostly because those games had co-op and pretty much none of the other big JRPG series had that, but that's a topic for another day. The point is, I fell in love with this series many years ago, and even well over a decade later, I still find myself as a fan of this niche, weird, and not as popular as those other JRPG series games. In fact, it's even a miracle I stumbled upon this series back then, considering my hatred for RPGs at that time. But here we are in 2023, the newest game, Tales of Arise, it's as pretty as the Mona Lisa, and Namco still can't be arsed to release the Japanese-only games over here. Come on! One of my favorites in the series happens to be Tales of the Abyss. This game might not be the most challenging or even the most rewarding entry in the series, but its core gameplay and the world, and especially the story and the characters resonate with me to this day. I'm probably not the only guy on the internet to sing this game's praises, but it's just so good. Speaking of the characters, this has to be one of my favorite casts in the series. The main party members are all really good, from the snarky and cold, trolling and hilarious fan favorite Jade Curtis, to the amazing pillar of character development that is Luke von Fabra. I even like Annis, for crying out loud. But we're not talking about them today. We're talking about him. Oh yeah, that guy. Guy is not my favorite in the cast of Abyss. I probably like Luke and Jade more, but there's just something about this cool, badass, and xenophobic guy that makes him a cut above the rest. Maybe it's his design, which is very simple and kind of normal looking, yet it fits a swordsman like him well. Maybe it's Johnny Young Bosch's charismatic performance, or maybe it's just because he and Flynn look so much alike for some reason. But that's what we're here to find out today. Hello everyone, this is Dragon Guy, and welcome to my first ever video. Yes, I haven't made any videos on YouTube before, no siree. This will be the first in my character analysis series where I'll be taking a look at a character from whatever, see what makes them good, or bad, or mid, throw some opinions out there, and see where that gets us. I've been wanting to do these videos for years now, but the time has finally come. So grab a drink, maybe some snacks, and let us dive deep into Tales of the Abyss's Guy Cecil. Before we start, I think I need to clarify a few things. First of all, while Guy is a character that technically appears only in one game, this is still a massive franchise with dozens of games and supplementary material, and would you look at that? Guy appears in several of these other titles, as well as Tales of the Abyss. So will I be covering any of these? No! Look, I'm aware the crossover titles give some characters different backstories and such, and they maybe have some fun interactions with other characters, but if I were to cover all of Guy's appearances throughout the series, we'd be here all day. Of course, I might mention stuff as we go along, but don't expect me to go in too deep. Also, and this might be somewhat obvious, but I will be assuming in this video that you have played Tales of the Abyss. As such, don't be surprised if I won't explain every single detail about the game's story and world. Now, I will be going into some detail about stuff, of course, but I'll be getting a lot of this from Guy's page on the Tales wiki and from a story recap, and they don't really go into detail on what a phonic machine or phone tech is, for example. And that would also entail a lot of rambling about the game's lore and mechanics, which I want to avoid for now for the sake of my sanity. And as such, I will also be discussing spoilers, though in a separate segment that can be skipped. So with all that out of the way, now to start off, Who exactly is Guy Cecil? In the game, Guy is introduced to us as a servant of House Fabra, the family where the main character Luke belongs. He's basically Luke's caretaker, but over the years, he has grown to become Luke's best friend as well, but also because of this, he feels responsible for how spoiled and kind of a bitch Luke has become. But anyway, he's introduced as this kind and cool gentleman with a fast and effective fighting style. Once Luke goes missing at the beginning of the game, Guy of course goes after him due to Luke's father's command and catches up to Luke, Tyr and Jake pretty quickly. After this, Guy joins the party and travels with Luke and his new companions. Once this has happened, we get to learn some more about him, particularly that he's afraid of women, dubbed as genophobia. And I don't mean like he's shy or something, he literally freezes when getting into physical contact with a woman. Okay? This also especially bad for him since he's such a kind and suave person, but whenever a woman gets near him, it's okay though, it's all played for laughs. Look at Natalia abusing him. Oh wait, but as soon as the Coral Castle dungeon, and we already get some hints to both what his deep-seated fear of women really is, as well as his backstory. Anis gets afraid in the castle and latches onto Guy for protection, which triggers something in him and he freaks out. He explains then that his genophobia might be related to a memory he has blocked out, which has something to do with the death of his family. Already, there seems to be more beneath the surface of this character. Tales games tend to do this thing where they set a character up to be one thing, a cliche most of the time, and then by the halfway point of the story or so, the writers take the character apart bit by bit. In other words, it's everyone's favorite buzzword, deconstruction! Okay, but for real, is Guy a target of Tales' usual deconstruction? I would say no. The tropes that are present with Guy are played pretty straight for the most part. That's because the deconstruction is saved for other characters, but that's neither here nor there. But since the deconstruction is something that happens later on in the story, it brings us nicely to... spoilers! We'll be discussing spoilers next. So if you're somehow still here after me telling you that this video is mainly for those who have already played the game, click off the video. So later on in the story, when Luke has done some very bad things, aka sink a city into purple goop, cause the deaths of hundreds of people, trusting the main antagonist, you know, as one does. At this point, the party is quite sick of Luke, who is also revealed to be a replica of the original Luke, now going by the name Ash. The party, minus Tyr, decides to travel with Ash and leave Luke behind in Yulia City. But it's not long when Guy decides to turn back and go keep an eye on Luke, because, as he says, my friend is that idiot, implying that he doesn't see Ash as his friend, or at least as the friend he grew up with. When Luke picks himself back up, cuts his hair, and decides to not be a smelly little bitch, he and Tyr head back to the Outer Lands from Yulia City to save another town from sinking. Once they emerge from Arami Spring though, they find Guy waiting for them. When Luke questions him about this, since he's not the original Luke, Guy simply answers that he's the one he has been looking after for all these years, not Ash. This moment is relatively small, but it establishes very strongly how loyal Guy is to Luke. Fast forward to the party being reunited and heading to the capital of Malkuth, Grand Kokma. On their way, the party runs into two of the god generals, Largo and Sink. They have a confrontation, which ends in very surprising results, as Guy starts attacking Luke because of something Sink does. This attack against Luke is caused by a curse slot, something that Sink put on Guy earlier in the story. Luke assumes that Guy has been brainwashed somehow, but the curse slot actually just makes the cursed person lose their inhibitions and act on subconscious feelings. In other words, despite being very loyal to him, there's a part of Guy that wants to kill Luke. Yikes. Once the curse slot is dispelled by Ion, the party, or specifically Luke, wants to talk to Guy. He then explains why he wanted to kill Luke. Guy is actually of royal blood, from the now destroyed land of Hod, and his real name is Gailardia Galangardios. On his 5th birthday, when all his relatives and servants were gathered at the family house, the Hod War began, and Duke Fabra, Luke's father, killed all of the people there with his army, save for Guy, who is later revealed to have been saved by the corpses of his female relatives and servants. This pretty clearly explains his genophobia, which is actually just PTSD. After this event, Guy swore revenge by wanting to hurt Duke the same way Duke hurt him, aka by killing his family, and thus infiltrated House Fabra to do just that. Guy, however, changed his mind about revenge later down the line, as his friendship with Luke put a bit of a grind on the whole thing. Even so, he still has some lingering rage on the issue, which can be seen in the peace conference scene in Yulia City, where Guy questions the Kimlaskan king about the destruction of Hod and threatens him with a sword when it's revealed Hod was attacked only because of a prophecy by the Score. This scene in particular is really tense, and it just hammers in just how serious Guy is about the whole thing. The way he tells Luke to shut up and how angry he sounds questioning the king are especially notable.
That's why you destroyed Hod? There were Kimlaskans there too, like my mother. My mother at least knew what she was doing when she married into that family. But what possible reason was there to involve everyone else, to destroy Hod?
But eventually, Guy does get better. One instance of character development he gets is when he, along with Tyr, saves Annis from falling off a ledge without so much as a flinch. This really shows that he's beginning to understand his trauma and cope with it. I don't know, it's a really nice scene for him. As for his revenge, in the aforementioned peace conference scene, he realizes that he would have to kill both leaders of the two nations to get the revenge he wants, as the Kimlaskan king and Duke Fabra slayed the Gardios family, while the Malkuth emperor made plans to destroy Hod. Everything would just go from bad to worse if he attempted his revenge, so he decides to put his sword away and let the diplomacy continue. And I haven't even mentioned the role of Van, the game's main antagonist, in Guy's story. You see, Van, aka Vandestelka Mustafende, was a part of a family that served House Gardios, and he was close friends with both Guy as well as his sister Mary. After Hod is destroyed, the vengeful Guy and Van decide to team up and get revenge on Duke Fabra, meaning that the two were working together for some time. But eventually, during the game's events, as explained previously, Guy sides himself with Luke's party. As the final battle with Van approaches, we're also given these heart-to-heart scenes with each of the characters, with Jade talking to Annis, Luke talking to Tyr, and Guy talking to Natalia. These conversations are a Tale staple, at least I think they are, and I really like them in every game they appear in. The conversation between Guy and Natalia is mostly about Luke and Ash than it is about Guy or Natalia, but it still confirms Guy has put his past behind himself and wants to start anew with Ash, who was the son of his enemy. And that's about all I wanted to discuss in this segment. There is still a few things I could mention, like his interest in phonic machines, his fighting style and how it relates to his family, his comparison to Sync as a spoil, or the fact that Guy is distantly related to Tyr and Van due to sharing some ancestors, but most of that is not that important to Guy's development. But all in all, that's Guy Cecil in a nutshell. In a rather large nutshell. He's a guy you can put your trust on. Now, what do people think of Guy as a character? And what do I think of him as a character? Well, according to my very in-depth research, most people seem to think that he's a hashtag real bro. His loyalty to Luke, despite his rage against the Fabra family, is really heartwarming. And he's just a really cool dude, making him one of the more popular characters in the business cast. And it shouldn't come as no surprise that I absolutely agree with all of this. Guy is just cool, and people would be right. He is a real bro. The loyalty he has for Luke is very sweet and just solidifies their friendship for me. Besides all that, his laid-back and chill attitude has always catered to me, and his charisma is unmatched in the cast of this. And this guy gets a lot of great lines too. I've already shown the amazing Guy clip like 3 times already. That should speak volumes of how quotable he is. His past is very interesting and his desire for revenge understandable, both making him, upon all of what I've just said, a very intriguing character. Yet I also see him as very noble and selfless, since he never actually betrays the party despite having solid reasons for it. And he never puts his own selfish wants forward, even though there are times he cracks under pressure. But he's also honest and often speaks the truth about most things. Like I said, has some of the best lines. I also really like his character design. It fits him like a glove. The color scheme and the clothing give me this everyman vibe, yet also a feeling of a personal bodyguard type, you might say. Which fits Guy quite nicely. His hair is also all spiky and shit, of course, gotta have some anime style in there. Not to mention I have a lot of nostalgia for this design, as Abyss was one of the first Tales games I got into. All in all, I really like Guy, and so should you. His design is awesome, his story arc is compelling and engaging, and he just speaks to me on a certain cool factor. Guy might not be the deepest character in the world, but he most certainly is very cool. And sometimes that's all you need, charisma and badassery. So Guy Cecil might not be profoundly deep, but he's undeniably charismatic and cool, especially when compared to the other main characters of Abyss. His development may be small, and his story might be a little basic as a revenge plot, but his role in the story of the game is still important, and Abyss just wouldn't be the same without his presence. He's supportive and loyal towards his friends, especially Luke, and he's generally a person you'd like to be around. I hope someone was able to take something out of this video, be it some newfound appreciation for Guy, strengthening your feelings about the character, or whatever else. And please, let me know if there was something I missed, or perhaps there are some theories about Guy you want to discuss in the comments. Whatever it is, be sure to let me know. And with that, my first character analysis comes to a close. I'm still trying to figure out how to do these videos efficiently, but for a first-timer, I can only hope it wasn't bad. But until next time, like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Dragon Guy, signing off.